all these wild anomalies going on in Texas, right, with the floods.
Yeah,
If you're
like I said, I haven't looked too much into it. I've just seen some of the
okay, well,
current.
here's the wild anomalies, right? It's like you can see all these videos from all these flash floods coming down from like rivers, and they'll show like an hour-long time lapse, and it'll be like normal river, tide level, whatever, and
Mhm.
then like within the hour, feet above where it was before. So you have
Mhm.
like these wild, anomalous weather patterns going on. And then not only in Texas, dude, this happened in North Carolina last year.
Yes.
Then you have the Lahaina fires, the Palisade fires. Some of
Mhm.
it could be argued for arsonism, you know what I mean? Like arsonists, like being wild and
Yeah.
stuff. There was
Yeah.
just a
Oh,
thing in Idaho, right?
there's definitely crazy people making it worse. Like same thing, like with the California fires and stuff like
Right,
that.
right, absolutely. Like there was just a thing that happened a few days ago in Idaho where the guy set arson to a fire. Then all these firefighters came to put it
Yeah.
out, and then he
That,
shot them and killed them.
that was right down. That's not too far from where I'm at out here in Cheyenne.
Yeah, pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
So you have all this kind of stuff going on now. At the same time, I've always been a proponent for
Mhm.
that. There's weather modification technologies afoot. I
Okay.
think the chemtrails are real. I
Uh huh.
think there's has been a concerted effort backed by Bill Gates, backed by um, different the economic what's it called, the World Economic Forum,
Uh huh.
Klaus Schwab, all those kind of guys that are like
Yeah.
all into the climate agenda. And
Yeah.
then so Bill Gates was all into deforesting and not replanting trees to fight carbon, and was also trying to block out the sun to
Uh huh.
mitigate what do they call them,
Global warming, basically.
well, not global warming, but what greenhouse gases and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so they have all these different planes, and so like, dude, I've taken pictures throughout the years of every morning I come out to go to
Mhm.
work, and I'll take
Yes.
pictures of all these lines in the sky, and it looks like a checkerboard, dude. Have you ever seen it? Have you ever gone out into the sky and you look up and you're
Yeah.
like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't remember ever seeing this as a kid.
Dude, I was on to the chemtrails and all that stuff like back in like 2012. And what I got out of it is basically some of what you said. My understanding of what is going on with that is mainly them trying to reflect sunlight back out
Right.
away from the earth because they were trying to minimize global warming
Do you
effects.
know how they do that? Do you know what the
Yeah,
process
they put
is?
like they just put like metals and stuff in the air to help reflect
Right.
the sunlight.
So they put heavy metals into the air, like borium, silver
Mhm.
dioxide, and there are all these heavy metal particulates that are supposed to reflect the sunlight
Yeah.
to alleviate a gas house emissions, or greenhouse emissions. But
Yeah.
the thing about it is like, do you ever remember voting on that?
No, of course
No,
not.
me either. Do you ever remember any of your like your congressman or anything like that ever like being like, "Hey, we should vote on this. Like, what do you guys think? What do my
No, that's
constituents
all.
think?" No,
It's all
it's
like
never
a lot of
happened.
a lot of that stuff is top secrets, military components to it and things that they technically claim that they don't have to share with the public because it has military implications.
Exactly.
So, but
So
here's my question. So, one, like, okay, we know they do weather engineering for sure in certain ways, as far as like cloud seeding and things like that, right?
geoengineering, yes.
Okay, so now let's say that this theory is true about what they're doing with those chemtrails and using heavy metals and things like that to reverse climate change that they claim is global warming.
Right.
Two things. One, well, if you look at a lot of the data that's come out lately, as far as the climate goes, it kind of looks like we're entering into a cooling
A
era,
cooling
right?
period? Yeah, a
Yeah.
cooling period is actually exactly what we're in.
Okay, so one, now what is like who if say that's the truth, right? And they've been putting all those heavy metals into the atmosphere to reflect sunlight. because they thought it was the right thing to do, but in reality, they're actually doing it at a time that we don't need that to be happening. Like, I don't understand who we would go about blaming for that. Like, is that Bill Gates? Is that our military? And
Well, it's
then,
both, dude. I mean, both. There's been military operations as far back as Vietnam that were manipulating weather patterns, and then even before that, there were. I mean, this has been going on since the 1940s. You can find papers on weather
and then, okay,
modification on.
okay, and then here's the second question. So, if that's the case, right? Say they, which happens a lot of time in science, say their intentions were good, right? But now we're having all of these side effects. Now, do you think that's what it is? Do you think that, those things like the forest fires, like the weird flooding, and just the strange weather patterns we haven't seen, do you think that's something that is being done specifically on purpose for a reason? And if so, what's the reason? Or do you think it's more of side effects of them trying to do something that they thought was the right thing to do, but they had no business doing, and
I think
trying to
it's
deal with it?
both.
Okay.
So both. One is the Palisades fires and the Lahaina fires specifically. There was both like odd anomalous occurrences that happened in weather anomalies that contributed to those fires. I think there's also a bit of arsonism that was going on in those fires, whether that was through agent provocateurs or just the general populace. I don't know. I don't have concrete evidence for that. But I would
Mhm.
say that those were the evidence for that. But I would also say that there is a financial gain in those areas that were affected as well. Lahaina, as well as the Palisades, are both highly enriched real estate areas.
Of course, yeah.
So there's like tons of real estate that is there up for the grabbing, and then whenever things get burnt to the ground, and they go like, "Hey, like you don't have a home here anyway. We as the government will give you some money, and we'll give you overvalued the amount anybody else would for this plain lot that you don't have any kind of structure on it to begin with. We'll give you more money, and the people that'll take it, they'll want to take it because there's more money that's offered. So then they can put commercial developments. BlackRock can get in there, put residential developments, and then
Uh-huh.
rent out those homes and put them on lease or whatever they want to do. So I think there's a huge financial aspect to it that
Mhm.
I think that coincides with um, HARP, HAARP,
Yeah.
as well as just the general military industrial complex. I think
Well,
which
well
HARP
then,
is kind of involved in, but
well,
yeah.
let me ask. Well, because like, dude, I've heard so many conspiracy theories when it comes to a lot of those fires, whether it was in California or Hawaii. And a lot of times it's a lot of people saying stuff, and it's like they don't technically a lot of times have a lot of evidence to back it up, but they do have at least like some good theories, you know. But my question is, okay, so but then what about this like recent like Texas flooding or the North Carolina flooding? Like what would be the reasoning behind that? If it's like purposeful geoengineering.
Well, I would imagine that okay, like, and this might be a stretch, so
Mhm.
bear with me on that. But
Okay.
if I was in any kind of realm of power to go, like, I'm at the top end of the echelon of insurance companies or real estate companies or large asset controlling companies, I
Mhm.
could see a lot of opportunities in the U.S. to create chaos in a region to then use that region for financial gain. I mean, you don't. Do you think that's a possibility? Do you think that that's
Ooh.
something that certain huge corporations that have billions of dollars at disposal in liquid
Mhm.
assets to change something for a greater return over a 10-year period, 5-year period? You don't think that could happen?
I don't know. Here's another question. So the North Carolina ones, anyways, I don't really know so much about the Texas ones, but like the North Carolina floods that happened, it happened in pretty conservative areas, pretty close to the time of the elections, and there actually were people struggling at a time, and they weren't giving funds to help. get things straightened out over there. Do you think something like that could ever be a political tool where like the
Okay,
political
so
party of
wait,
power
in what specific regions are you talking about? In what specific instances?
in North Carolina, those recent floods that happened,
Okay.
a lot of those people in housing and those
Were
houses
Republican
specifically.
voters that may have
Yes.
been affected to not be able to vote Republican?
Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
think that would
I could see maybe potentially that being a reason, but I think that
uh
it goes beyond that. I think that that's an opportunistic um portion of what the whole operation is. I think it's a whole operation. I think, the Democratic Party kind of bleeds into corporatism and the corporatism structures that there are at play and the power structures in the corporatism that there are at play. And so that if they wanted to affect a region to then gain
like especially if it was like a
prosperity out of the destruction of that region to then resell it for real estate and all that kind of stuff, and it bleeds into their political gains, I think that's definitely a potential
right,
that could happen.
especially if it's like a swing state, like right before an election, and say like in Wisconsin or something, the last 4 years, or 4 years ago, um, your candidate only lost by 10,000 votes, right? And then, I mean, I don't know. I could see that being a feasible, reason why they would do something like that. But
Well,
once
really,
again,
well,
when it
yeah.
comes to a lot of that stuff, it's just like those are such macro events, and I do enjoy focusing on macro events, but it's just like one of those things where it's like there's so many pieces that I can't put together, and so many pieces that are up in the air that it's hard to really come to a final conclusion or opinion on it, because I'm just like, I don't know. There's so many moving parts.
If you were going
You
to
know?
ask me, I mean, I think if you're going to look at the macros of things, I think the Hegelian dialectic plays a part in this. So the
Right.
Hegelian dialectic is that that a person in power creates chaos for then you to lean in on that power to create a recontrol of the chaos, right?
Mhm.
So you're a mass protest happens and people are looting and going all crazy. Who are you going to look to be the arbiters of peace in that situation? You're going to look at the government, right? You're going to look to the police and the National Guard, military, whoever it is, to create the peace of that chaos, right? So, like the people that are in power, what they want to do is create a chaos so that you, as the layman, look to go, who's the reasonable authority in this situation? And the
Mhm.
reasonable authority is always going to be the military, the government, whoever, daddy,
Yeah,
you know,
I
daddy.
guess.
And
I think.
what we
Uh,
shouldn't do is lean in on that. What we should lean in on is community and all, and what's best for the local region of it. That's what's being affected, and then to get resources from the government if they will give it. But most cases they don't. So I don't know why people lean in on the government to give them any solace or to give them any solution, because
mhm.
time and time again has been shown, whether it's the train wreck in Ohio, whether it's the Lahaina fires, whether it's Palisades, whether it's North Carolina, whether it's Texas, whether it's Florida, every single time the government who plays into the Hegelian dialectic to go like, oh, we're going to be the saviors of you, there never are. They always fuck the layman. And it's just the game that they play, dude. And they want you to go lean in on the government and rely on them to give you security, but they never do. So that's really what it is. And then they opportunistically exploit that and take as much money and wealth out of that circumstance as they possibly can.
Mhm. See, I think the ultimate goal is, I think there's a lot of people in power that are innately authoritarian, and I think that so much of the world, not just a lot of our own politicians, but so much of the world actually hates America in many ways. and they want us to collapse, and they ultimately want
Who's
to
they?
mainly communists, mainly
Okay,
communists,
who
and
are the communists? Like, so like I would argue that our own
yeah.
government is self-destructive. I wouldn't say that
Well,
it's like
they're
some
purposely
foreign
they're purposely
communist ideology.
it is a communist ideology that has perpetrated all the universities, all the
Yeah,
main
well,
universities in our
that's
country.
true. Yeah.
So I think their ultimate goal is they want to collapse us. They hate our Constitution, they hate our freedom, and they know as long as America is the beacon of light and power in the world, they won't be able to control us the way they want to. Ultimately, they want to make America like communist China
Okay,
because they
but
want the
let's name
power.
names. Who's they? Let's name
Um,
names.
I mean, mainly it's liberals and communists and socialists that are mainly on the left. There's certainly some people on the right that I think are just going along with it and not putting up enough of a fight because they don't understand the importance of the fight and what's going on right now. They don't understand that that's their ultimate goal. They think it's all just like, it's just a little back and forth politics. But in reality, they want to collapse the United States. That's why they want to bring chaos. They want to collapse us so that they can, so that ultimately that person or that party can rise up, like you said, and say, okay, we're going to get you out of this chaos. You just have to, we're going to do the communism thing now here in America, and then that will forever take America out of the way so that these other
Yeah, but I see it
countries.
on the other side too, dude. Like I don't see it just from the democratic, potentially socialist direction. I see it from the neocon perspective too, where it's just like, hey, we got to like get in all these foreign wars, and we got to have control over the entire world to feel some kind of security. It's like, dude, we have enough security. We have the whole United States, dude, plus other territories. Like, how much
Yeah,
more do we need? How many bases, militarily wise, do we need to have across the world? We have 1,000 right now. Do we
I
need
think
that? How many
I
countries
think
are there? That means there's
I
like
think
2 or 3 to every country.
I
That's
think
wild.
the hawkish neocons are certainly um, a bit of a trouble. I don't think that they are going to lead to our ultimate collapse. And if anything, yes, you do have some of those hawkish neocons, those old school Republicans that are still there, but mainly the warring faction and the people that are pro-war are more so on the left now. I that's how I feel.
Well, that's how it always turns. It's always the group that's always for war. That's not the I don't know. It's always it doesn't matter whether it's Democrat or Republican. It's always the other like party
Mhm.
that's power that's saying that the other party's in like a
Yeah.
war,
Well,
hawkish state or
I,
whatever. But
I
I mean,
already
really,
talked.
dude, in the reality of it, I mean, like it doesn't really matter. Like whether you're in the communist kind of agenda or you're in the neocon warhawk kind of agenda, it's all for the same kind of stuff. And we all realize that, but we all pretend that like it's at a certain point that our party is on the side of like pro peace and pro utopia and all that kind of stuff, but none of it actually can be realized. And that's what it is. So we all need to agree that all the two-party system is just antiquated and that we need to get out of it and that we need to create a new party that's actually for the American people. And then that party will probably end up getting corrupted too.
This
But
this
at
is
least it'll
like
be
this is
more for like what we're for than what the two-party system currently is for.
this is going to be an extremely unpopular opinion, but I've thought a lot about this over the last 10 years. I don't see a reason why you would ever need more than two parties.
Dude, what
How
do
do
you
you,
mean? Like, why do you mean? Like, so it's everything has to be binary?
no, well, so if you really think about it, right, there's no reason that you would ever need a third party. Like, I just don't understand why you would need a third party ever.
Why
And
do you? Why
also,
would you believe that an extension of a two-party system that's supposed to be under the umbrella of one party's good, one party's bad? Why would you ever
because
believe that?
because I think ultimately, like, it's so easy to align yourself with one or the other. Like, I mean, their policies are the complete opposite, pretty much for most things. So it's like, I mean, there's basically nothing at this point in time. And trust me, I tried to look for it. There's almost nothing at this point in time on that is considered part of the Democratic Party or the left right now that I align with.
if you're saying that there's a potential equilibrium of power sets that balance each other out through the Democratic and Republican Party, and that it leads to better outcomes, I would tell you to look at America and show you that it does not lead to better outcomes.
Well, America's still the best country in the world. There's nothing that comes close to it.
I don't know. I don't know if I would agree, but
You don't agree with that? What other country would even come close to America?
I'm not saying that there's any particular country that does things better in a sense overall, but I would say that there's particular policies in place in other nations that would benefit me in my current time of experiencing life than what America's currently
Dude,
offering me.
the only countries that even come close to us are like a lot of the European countries, and basically they're being conquered right now. In the next 10 years, all of Europe will be Islamic and Muslim.
I don't have any
They're,
disagreements that Europe's on the brink of collapse.
yeah, they're being
But
conquered. They're being conquered.
I would also say that there's definitely a subset of European countries that take their involvement into NATO and the UN as a security back from the US, that they definitely work their policies out of a sense of ego
Right.
that
But
give
also
their that
a
give
third
their
party.
populace a better economic outcome than the United States does, because because basically our tax dollars go towards all of their securities rather than to the United States, and I would say that's a travesty.
Well, also like a third party would never work because I mean, even now you have a lot of people that claim they're part of a third party, that they're independent or whatever, this or that. Bernie Sanders
Yeah,
was
you can do
independent, but
independent, but that's political suicide in the United States political system.
and then also when it comes to voting, whether it be in the House or in the Senate,
Yeah, dude, those are
with
all
a third
all
party,
political norms that we need to rid
but
of.
with the third party, nothing. There would never be anything that ever got passed ever.
I don't know, man. Even Elon Musk himself said that we need to create a third party, and it had like 48 million impressions, and people were all about it.
Yeah,
So,
I love Elon Musk for a lot of different things, but I would say I disagree with him on that. I do disagree.
well, it is weird coming from a South African. So we'll say that.
Well, he makes a lot of good points, and I will say, just the other day, he posted a news article about how like thousands of Christians were just beheaded um, in one of those African countries. I forget which one, but it's a
Uh,
a mainly Muslim country, and I think he's starting to wake up to the threat that is Islam, and so I applaud him for that. But
well,
look,
that's
like I
interesting
said, there's
because I just saw him post a video about the Israelis burning an entire region of Gaza where, like, they claim Jesus actually had his 2 feet on and walked through and preached through and proclaimed through and all this kind of stuff, and now it's all ablaze, and any kind of like historical context of it is lost. That's what
I
I've
don't.
just seen
I'd
like
have to look.
today.
I'd have to look at that. I did not see that, but
I
I'd have
don't
to
know
look
the
into that.
town. I don't know where it was because I don't have like I'm not articulate in Christian history, so I can't really tell you exactly like what the significance was of this region, but there was some
Right.
kind of region that was in Gaza where Jesus walked, and they like basically just pulverized it. And it's
And
just
I
like
also,
I mean, dude, like really like what I've been saying this whole time, when it comes to all that kind of stuff, and I hate coming back to it all the time, but it's just like the Jews killed Jesus, dude. So like what are you supporting? Like I don't understand. Like there's Israel and there's Jews, and then the Jews killed Jesus. So then like what are we doing here? Like why are you supporting Israel so much?
well, because like I said, I don't want to get into the whole history of Christianity
It
and
seems
Judaism.
convoluted, man. It seems pretty point blank to me. The Jews were not cool with Jesus. That's why they have their own religion called
Yeah,
Judaism. And then
yeah,
Christianity came out of Judaism. I get that, but the
yeah.
Jews killed Christ because they were
They
like,
did.
"Nah, dude, we got Judaism." And like,
They
all you Christ followers, you shouldn't be doing that, and that's why we're killing your Savior. And then now there's Israel and it's a Jewish state, and you are supporting it whenever they killed your savior, dude. Like, what is up with that?
well, so one, the Jews considered Christ to be a false Messiah and a false prophet,
They have
whatever.
multiple messiahs, and
And,
they even
and
claimed him as
technically,
false.
the Romans killed Jesus. The Jews just kind of convinced the Romans to kill Jesus.
Now, of course, shifty
But
Jew behavior as always. Yep.
yeah, but like I said, at the end of the day, the Jews really are a pretty exclusive religion. They think they're the chosen people, and they're not really
Right.
looking for people to
Right. So why do
really.
you think that they would carry any weight of the backs of Christians into any kind of prophecy?
But
They're gonna
look,
shun you guys.
I don't really. The thing that I am aware of, and I know this to be a fact in my heart, that the largest existential crisis to Western civilization and mankind right now is Islam. They want.
Sure, but dude, like we just already talked, the United States is not in Revelations. It's not even part of the Bible. So like our part in the story has nothing to even do with it. So like why would you have any thought to think that Israel and its existence in its current state since
Yeah,
1948 and
yeah.
its secular Judaism has anything to do with the Bible, or your Christianity is beyond
Because it obviously does, because in the Bible it tells you if you bless
bless
Israel, you'll be blessed.
Israel, right, the
Yeah.
people.
Yes, and the people. I mean, the
Not the current
government is.
state since 1948 that was instituted from British Parliament that gave the rights to Jewish to overtake Palestine. I don't
Well, that
understand how
that
that has
that
anything
Jewish.
to do with the biblical Genesis verse that says those who bless Israel will be
That's
blessed. And
that is not.
I'm not a
Yeah.
biblical historian, so like I
Well,
don't
let
understand.
me teach you and Tucker
Enlighten me.
both something. Let me teach you and Tucker both something. That's actually not just a verse from Genesis. It's all throughout the Bible, including towards the end in Revelations when it's referring to that state of Israel that obviously is the current state of Israel, because it's at the end of the day. So it's not talking about the state of Israel, just when Jesus was there. It's a reinstated Israel, and it is referred to in the Bible.
Okay,
So
okay. All right. So let's just stop there. Let's pretend that you're right. Okay. Let's pretend that everything that you're saying is right. Okay.
yes.
I'm down for it. Okay. In this hypothetical, I'm down for it.
Okay.
Why don't you live in Israel then?
Because I'm American.
And what part does America have to do with Christianity?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter
It
where you're
doesn't.
from. Christian
So, right.
Christian is
So, if
open to
you're
everyone.
going to outlive your prophecy of your religious beliefs, wouldn't you think that your stand would be in Israel rather than America?
No, it's here. It's my homeland, and
Okay, but you want to
my Jesus.
support, but you want to support Israel and its religious beliefs
Well, like I
more
said, it's more
more
so.
than the propensity of bringing nuclear war to America. You want to defend Israel and its
Yeah.
ideals more than the nuclear propensity for America
Well, the quicker that Israel
because
gets
of your
wiped out.
biblical beliefs.
Well, no. So Israel, the quicker they get wiped out, the sooner nuclear destruction will come to America, because they'll put all their focus on America instead of just Israel.
Israel doesn't have a nuke, or I mean, Iran doesn't have a nuke. Israel has 75 to 400 nukes that they
Right.
won't follow regulations on. So we
Iran
have
wants a
no
nuke.
idea how many nukes Israel has, but we know how many nukes Iran has,
Well, as soon
and
as
it's
they get one,
none.
they'll drop it. As soon as they get one, they'll drop it, because that's just, if you
Says
don't realize
who?
that, then you don't understand me, because you don't understand Islam and how much they hate Christians and Jews. You have to understand Islam, which I
Okay,
don't think
okay,
that you
okay.
fully
Let's
study
play.
this.
Okay, okay. Let's play this game.
Yes,
Who has dropped nukes so far?
America,
What denomination is America predominantly?
Christian.
Do I need to say more?
Yeah, because we killed thousands of people. We killed thousands of people to stop millions more
To
from being
stop
killed.
what?
Millions of more people. We stopped World War II.
We stopped
So
World War II with Pearl Harbor.
with Nagasaki and the other one.
Okay, and what did they have to do with Nazism?
Well, they were allied with the Nazis. Japan was allied with the Nazis. They were the
Okay.
axis of evil.
Okay,
So we stopped Japan right away. We dropped bombs on them.
so we annihilated millions of women and children,
Thousands. Yeah.
and that was the righteous decision. That was
Yeah.
the
Well,
godly decision. out
Yeah,
of the
what if we?
Christian
Well,
nation of
that's
America.
the thing, dude. Neither me and you were God. So what if that was the ultimate? That was the ultimate destiny of what was supposed to
Yeah,
happen.
I
Because
would assume if I had higher power, my judgment would not be to kill 1 million Japanese women and children. That would
well,
be like something I
millions.
want to avoid. You know.
It wasn't millions. And also in the Bible, there was times when God said, "Hey, these Canaanites are nothing but pure evil. They have no good left in them. They basically need to be wiped out now before they spread their culture and corrupt mankind even worse." I mean, that's the same thing with the flood with Noah. I mean, there was a point in time when people became so evil and bad, and supposedly they started intermingling with fallen angels, which were demons, and that's why God sent the flood during Noah to wipe
Was the
out.
flood of Noah represented in any other religious story before Noah?
Well, some of them, there was like Samaria and Babylon, and stories like that, but they might actually be of the same story. They might all be
Do you know
referencing the
about
same
the
story.
Epic of Gilgamesh?
Yeah. Yes.
And that was in the what biblical text?
The Epic of Gilgamesh is Sumerian.
And that was how many thousands of years before Christianity?
Well, it's actually hard to tell because I don't think that a lot of the carbon dating and things that they use to come up with a lot of the timeline of our history is actually correct. So I think a lot of the timeline and history that they have before Christ, like maybe like 2000 BC and earlier, I think a lot of that is um, a lot of the ways they come up with some of those dates with the carbon dating and things like that. I think there's a lot we don't know. I think there's still a lot of those pieces that need to be put together.
Let me throw this side question to you.
Mhm.
How long would it be after the writings of Christ would you lose faith in its outcome?
What do you mean? I don't know what you're
How
saying.
many thousands of years would you let aside to then go, maybe this isn't the real prophecy?
Well, I know Jesus
Like, what if
Christ
we
for
go
sure is
into
real.
what if we go into multiple millennia?
It
Like
doesn't.
what if it's
It,
like
it,
150,000 years and still nothing has happened? Are you still going to believe
I
and
know. Well,
then
here's the thing. I
even
know for a
before then,
fact.
right? Like even before then there was tons of different religious beliefs,
Yeah.
prior to Christ,
Yeah.
prior to Judaism,
You don't want to hear my
prior to
theory on that.
anything that we were probably even
You
familiar with. And now go 150,000 years in the future.
mm,
Do you think
mm.
Christianity is still going to hold prevalency?
Well, yeah, I don't know, but I know that Jesus Christ is for sure real. I know that for sure he's real. I'm
Even though if
100%
you were
sure.
born 3,500 years ago before Christ, you would not be a Christian because you wouldn't have any
I would.
conception of it.
Yeah, I would. He wasn't born yet, so
Right. And then you would live your life and you would die and you would have no idea about Christ.
I wouldn't have. A lot of people didn't.
Right. What about all those people?
Well, here's a couple theories, and some of this is maybe anti-biblical or anti-Christian as some current Christians may look at it. I don't know. This is just me constantly thinking about stuff, right? So, how many societies throughout time have just like seemingly disappeared?
Yeah. Uncountable.
A lot, right? So here's my theory. So, okay, or it's not my theory, it's a possibility. Okay. So in the Bible, it talks about something called the harpazo, which is also the rapture, which basically means like when it comes towards the end of time of this current age, Christ is the Son of God. If you believe in him, he will take you out of it before those last 7 years of
And hold on,
tribulation.
just to give me perspective, how long before Christ was this written in this text?
Was what written?
This was it not written before Christ, or it was?
No. So the stuff about the harpazo and the rapture basically comes after Christ dies on the cross, and people realize, like, okay, he's
So this
the
is
Son
written
of
after
God.
the fact, is what you're saying.
Yes, and this is
Okay.
just like them coming up with Christian theology after
Okay.
Christ comes, and they
Okay.
realize, like, oh, he's the Son of God, he's the Savior. And then Paul, which used to be Saul, he used to kill Christians, and he has this come to moment where God speaks to him, kind of like a Moses moment, and he becomes one of the most prolific Christians in history. He writes a lot of the New Testament. And a lot of the theology comes from that, as far as like these
Wait, wait,
people.
wait, wait, wait. Did you just say that a man wrote the New Testament?
Yeah,
Okay, I just want to
I
get
mean,
that right. Okay, go ahead.
well,
Continue.
man wrote the man physically with their hands wrote the Bible.
I understand. I just wanted to get it right. I'm not like harping on you. I'm just
Like
trying
God, I mean,
to,
I
I'm
say,
trying
yeah,
to get it
like
right.
yeah, God. I mean, God Himself didn't come down and write it, but he supposedly, if you believe, he supposedly inspired the people who wrote it.
Okay,
But
understood. Yeah, go ahead.
okay,
Continue. So I'm not trying to interrupt you. Go
yeah.
ahead.
So anyway, so you're asking me about what? You got me mixed up.
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't trying to interrupt your story arc there, but like I'm
But
just trying
okay,
to
but here's
understand like what were these. Like, I'm not biblically like taught,
yeah.
so like I'm just
So
trying to
so
understand.
so a lot of that stuff comes from the New Testament, and then there are certain things in the Old Testament that you can look at, like these weird passages that point to something like a rapture, and in the same way that a lot of stuff in the Old Testament points to a savior coming, a lamb who will be sacrificed for the sins of mankind, which is representative of Jesus. Like there's a whole theology that goes into it. But I've always thought about this, like what if for our age, right? Say there is a God, and for every age, whether it's every 10,000 years or 4,000 years or 6,000 years, whatever, he basically he lets mankind accumulate on earth, right? And he's like, I'm going to give mankind a choice if they want to follow good or follow evil, and I'll give them a way to help them become good if they so choose, right? And say that was Jesus for our and like I said, this is all just me. There's nothing biblical about what I'm saying. This is just me, a thought process I've had several
Okay,
times. So
okay.
okay,
I'm
and then
following.
it comes, and then once society eventually starts to get bad and worse and worse and worse, and things start to become more and more evil, the people who are believers, the people who are good, the people who chose God, he pulls them out, and then the rest of the world is left to kind of deal with the decisions that they chose, right?
So
And
like
I thought,
the Jews who chose God, but not your God. What happens to that?
in this timeline right now, well, the Bible kind of says what happens. The Bible says that
They burn
what
in
it seems.
eternity.
No. Well, as far as on Earth, the Christians mainly get sucked out of here, and I think
Right.
that's a large
Right.
reason why America probably falls, because America is such a Christian nation. I think a lot of the Christians maybe gets harpazoed or raptured to heaven, which leaves our population decimated. So then I think probably Russia and China destroy America very quickly, and that's Mystery Babylon. But as far as Israel goes, and then America is out of the picture and no longer protecting Israel, most of Israel gets destroyed by its surrounding nations, and then the Antichrist comes into Jerusalem and takes his throne in the third temple, which is like where the Dome of the Rock is now. And through all this, eventually, I think a lot of the Jews will kind of see what's happening, and they'll have 7 years basically to change their minds and accept Jesus. So they'll still be given a chance to accept Jesus and not burn or whatever. But
Well,
but
okay, but listen, I have a celebrity shot of questions from Mindy because I have to go pee. So here's a
okay.
celebrity shot from Mindy.
But you never let me get to the point I was trying to make was
Well, hold on, I gotta pee. Just finish the point and I come back. Good, Mindy.
Mindy.
Damn, oh my god. Worst. I was enjoying listening to Ian's. I listened to your podcast that you guys posted.
Yeah, it's still a little rough around the edges, and we're still trying to figure out
Yeah.
the best way. But I think a lot of the stuff we talk about is at least like interesting.
Yeah, I think it has great potential.
But what I was telling Aaron, and what I was trying to get to, is the fact, like, I thought about this, like, so what if like that is like Jesus is basically like the answer for us, for our age, whether it's like the past 6,000 or 8,000 years, right? And then you learn about all these other societies in the past, whether it be like some of the ancient Aztecs and like the ancient Egyptians, that some people think was like as much as like 13,000 years ago or whatever. What if they were given the same opportunity as us, but maybe it wasn't Jesus for them? Maybe it was like whatever that being was at that time, but it's basically still the same test that God gives mankind. And
Right.
it's like, and then you can choose like good from evil, and then when it comes to like the end of that age, he takes the good people out, and then that's why it's throughout time it seems like so many societies have seemingly just like disappeared out of nowhere. That was, I
Yeah.
don't know, that was an interesting thought. I always go back and forth on.
Yeah. I find it interesting. I mean, that's like, who's to say that's not a possibility that could be true?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, it's
Like,
so hard to tell because when you start going back in time that far, and like, you know, there's certain things that you can read. Sometimes there's text, but like even those texts, like when we date them, I just feel like there's so much that could be wrong with when, like the time that they're dating them. I've listened to a lot of different scientists talk about carbon dating, which is like a main tool that they use a lot of times to date things several thousands or millions of years back, like same way they do dinosaur fossils and things like that.
right.
And they, from what I've read and from what I've seen scientists talk about, it seems to me like that is completely flawed and should not be taken seriously at all. The carbon dating system that like even modern science still uses.
Okay. Yeah.
Ah,
There's
Did you
that.
take your, did you take your pee?
yeah, paid. It was
But
good.
I basically when you were going out, I kind of told Mindy what my theory was about how, you know, all these other societies before the age of Jesus, the reason a lot of them disappear out of nowhere could be similar to the reason like we get raptured out of here as Christians is maybe before Jesus there was another figure, and they had to, and God basically gave mankind a choice to choose between good and evil. He places kind of a savior figure, and
Okay,
the
so
parts of
wait. Okay, so this is antithetical to your belief system, though.
how.
So you're saying there's multiple messiahs over a
Well,
period of time. So you're
I'm
saying there's
saying that.
not the Holy Trinity.
Well,
So
I'm
like
saying that.
that's like wait, hold on, dude. That's your whole belief system is that there's a Holy Trinity. There's the Son, there's the God, there's the Father, there's the Holy Spirit,
Yes.
and
So no.
and
So that's. No, it
and so
doesn't. It's
there's
not.
only three. So you can't say like over a
No,
long period of
they're all
time.
one. They're all one. There isn't three, there's one. There's God who can present himself as a man, which was Jesus for our age. And then once God's spirit is in a man, and then that man dies, then that becomes the Holy Spirit that can then dwell upon the earth, right? As long as you accept that person. So once you accept Jesus, then you are rewarded with the Holy Spirit, which will help prune you and make you better and teach you good from bad. So what I'm saying is maybe Jesus is that figure for this era, that this 6,000 or 8,000 year, whatever, right? So
Whoa, wait, 6 to 8,000 years.
yeah.
So you're saying that there's no chance of a rapture coming in our lifetime?
No, I'm saying, well, Jesus technically would be like if you accept Jesus, that would be the 2,000 years, right? But God, as far as Christianity goes, was taking place what if you look back to Noah, they believe that's probably like 4,000 BC or 6,000 BC.
No. Okay, maybe I'm confused. So, like, I thought you're saying that the reign of like Jesus's prophecy was supposed to like be for so many years until the rapture happens. Like, is
Well,
there okay? Like in biblical texts, is there
yes.
a
Well,
determined
let me say
year?
that a lot of those things I spoke of are not biblical. That's just me sometimes thinking about just weird different historical possibilities, but it's not
Okay,
biblical.
but in the biblical text, when do they say that the rapture is supposed to happen?
Well, they say I don't know if it's I don't think
Like,
it's
is
ever
there
given
like what's the goalpost? Is it like some significant event happens and then
well
blah,
so there
after that
isn't.
period, there's something that's going to happen big spiritually?
Okay, so here is one reason that myself and a lot of Christian like scholars that I've listened to believe that the rapture has to happen sometime soon is because there is a passage in the Bible which it doesn't necessarily have to relate to the rapture, but it seems related to it. But it talks about as far as like the end times coming, it says like once Israel is basically back there in the Holy Land, that not I forget what it says, maybe only one generation shall pass before only one generation shall pass or something like that before Jesus comes back and the end times begins, whatever. So it's some people look at that as like, what exactly is a generation? So like when was Israel refounded? Like
1948.
48. Okay. So some people will say, well, back in the day, a generation could be as much as 100 years. So 100 years on top of that would be 2048, right?
My understanding of it would be the equivalent of a human life in today's terms to be a sacrum, which would be 80 years.
80 years. Okay. Yeah.
But if you look at
and a
Old
lot of people do
Testament
say that.
lifetime lines, Abraham was 800 years old.
Yeah. So that's why there's a lot of different
So I
discrepancy.
don't understand where that came from either. But
yeah, but so okay, what would be 80 years on top of 1948? I don't know what the math is.
80 years would be 2028.
Okay, so then right there, so that's why some people believe that we're close and we're getting close to the end time. So they say, okay, well, that 80 years is technically equivalent to like the generation, and they do some biblical. They come up with
gymnastics.
That some biblical way.
Yeah, I'm sure.
To say 80 is actually the best number to use for a generation. So I don't know. There's a lot that goes into that. But this all goes back to me and you as far as like Israel and stuff goes. And like I said, I never.
Well, the only reason why I think Israel keeps coming back into topic is because I feel that it's part of the prophecy of your Christian ideology, and I don't understand where the two coincide. I think they're opposite. I think you're misconstrued, and I'm not. I'm not big on Judaism. I don't know all the information. I don't know the information on Christianity and all that kind of stuff. But it just sounds to me like, from the layman who doesn't have any understanding of any of it, it just goes like, "Hey, man, I think you two are on different sides. I don't think that you guys are on the same side." Well, so, like, I don't know why you guys are so steadfast to go into life with each other. Like, I don't understand it.
Here's a way to look at it. Okay, Jesus forgave mankind for him being crucified because he knew that it had to be done. So he in a way, he tells us, you shouldn't hate Jews just for the sake of hating Jews because of what they did to Christ. He kind of makes that clear. So I don't hold that against the Jewish people, but the one way to look at the Jewish people is they basically have the same God as us, but they only have half of the message. And I know. But I look at Jews and I look at Israel as kind of, and this is probably not politically correct to say, but I kind of look at them as like our like retarded brother. And yeah, they have a lot of issues and things like that, but they're still our brother. And meanwhile, when you look at Islam and what Islam
glad this is recorded, by the way.
Islam. When I look at Islam, I believe it to be pure evil and inspired by Satan himself.
Okay. Well, but dude, who killed your savior?
Well, that's because Muslims weren't around yet. If Muslims were around, they would have certainly done it. The Muslims didn't come around until about 600 or 700 years after Christ.
But Muslims didn't kill your savior. Jews did.
Yeah, but it was a certain group of Jews also, but also a lot of the Jews accepted him as the savior, and that's why they spread the word of Jesus, and that's how the Bible got spread. So there was a lot of, it was mainly just there's
some kind of disconnect again with me and understanding all of this.
Really, it was just
there has to be some like document. There has to be something out there that I haven't seen yet that you guys all did, and that like I'm just missing the point. Like there has to be something, but like you guys have not come up with this document or this thing yet that goes like, yeah, like I'm on your side. Like everything that you're saying, like I totally believe everything that you're saying. Like you and my brother are on the same side, and it's you know, and I respect my brother, and I you
Yeah.
know, you know, just I
And I,
respect
and I
you,
and
and
I
you know, and
never
like, and
and
I just like I don't understand it, but like I just try to wrap my head around like
yeah,
where it is that you're coming from, and like where you guys are both coming from. Like there's just some kind of disconnect where like I'm not a Christian, so like that's I think that's what maybe where the disconnect is. But like you guys
maybe.
have this like profound belief of that you guys are right, and I'm just like I believe that you guys think you're right, like I
Yeah.
totally do. But like where you think you're right is where I'm like I don't know where you're seeing that that's right. Like
Yeah. Well,
I don't see
here's
like how that's the answer. Like in my
yeah. But
experiential
here would
experience of
be
life.
here would be my challenge to you. Okay, so like I never expect you to just like think like me or believe the way I believe. Okay, because I'm not Muslim. I would never try to force it on you.
I'm not Muslim either.
No, but I'm just taking a jab at Islam. But what I would challenge you to do is do your best to read up and understand Islam, because I think that's where the biggest disconnect comes from,
Yeah, but
especially when it comes to.
it's the same argument that you and my brother both have, is that you think that I'm cucking for Iran or something, and being Muslim. That's not my thing. Like I don't care about what Muslims believe or anything like that.
Well, no, that's
I think
because
both of what
if you
Jews
studied it,
and Muslims believes are not what I believe.
yeah,
I just don't
but
really agree with
but
either of the
if you
sides.
get to the
So
core, but once you get to the core of what Islam is and what they want to do to you and to me and to our families and to the whole world, what they want to do, it's written in their text. But once you understand how evil it is, that is the only way that you'll like start to. Once you start reading their text, specifically start at chapter 9, verse 29 in the Quran. Okay, once you start with the Quran and you read it and you actually understand what they truly believe, then you would be like, holy shit, like these people are worse than Nazis. These are, I mean, it's pure absolute evil what they believe and what their text stands for.
I can see
What chapter did you say, Nick?
Verse 9, I'm sorry, chapter 9, verse 29.
So I thought you said.
chapter 9, verse 23. Let's read it. Let's see what it's about. Let's see what it's about. But
And
in the
this is what,
meantime, so like in the meantime, while she's looking it up, I'll say
yeah,
this.
yes,
I'll say that there could be some awful stuff in there. And
yeah,
I can see why your detestment for it is
yes,
apparent.
yes.
And I would probably agree with that detestment.
And as much as like I know some of your issues with Jews as far as like the Talmud and Kabbalah and stuff like that goes, which once you started getting into that stuff, I don't even know how much of a Jew you are. Jesus talks
Well,
about stuff
they're
in the Bible.
extreme sects, just like anything.
Well, the thing that Jesus mentions in the Bible, and he kind of calls the Pharisees of his day, which are basically the ones that had him, convinced to be crucified. He calls them the synagogue of Satan, which is basically like these fake Jews that are actually doing Satan's bidding. So, and I think you do have a lot of that.
Like the
Mainly,
liberal Jews.
yes, like mainly like a lot of the Hollywood
Read
Jews and
it.
things like that.
Hold on. Mindy's going to read this. I can't read
Yeah.
it. Read it.
Fight those who do not believe in Allah or the last day, and who do not consider unlawful what Allah and his messenger who may be unlawful, and who do not adopt the religion of those from those who were given the scripture until they give the jizya willingly while they are humbled.
What's the
Yeah.
jizya?
Jizya is basically non-belief. Everybody who doesn't believe the way they believe. So and so they're already infiltrating Europe, right? And what their plans are, you can listen to Muslim
Okay,
podcasts.
so wait, so these are radical
They're not
Muslims.
radical. These are just Muslims. Like there's nothing
Okay.
radical about
So
it.
you're saying these are standard layman Muslims.
Yes,
And the what's
standard.
it called? The Jinzwa? What is
The
it called?
jizya, the jizya,
Jizya?
the jizz, like out of your wiener. The
Jizya.
jizya. But
Jizya. Okay.
but basically you can listen to Muslims openly, and they're not
Jizya.
like
Okay, Google
extremists.
that word.
These aren't, and that's the thing that people don't understand. These aren't extremist views. These are just legit written, plainly what they're supposed to do. So,
Like, what
but
is Jizya?
a lot of these Muslim podcasts, they're talking about it now and what they plan on doing to the whites in Europe. And what they're going to do is they're going to create laws that humiliate you until you become a Muslim. So basically, anybody who's a non-Muslim, they're going to tax you more. They're going to make you shave your head. They're going to make you wear a red tie around your neck. They're going to make you wear
Mhm.
2 shoes that don't match, and they won't do it to your child,
Form of
but they want
taxation.
to. These are the things
Yeah,
that are.
dude, this is all the same shit that Israel does to all the Palestinians, like all the Palestinians, dude. Like they treat them as second class citizens and tax them more and treat them as like subhuman and all that kind of stuff. And it's like so both sides do it to each other, dude. Like so, like that's
Yeah, but
I
but
come
but
in and
as
like where I'm like
like for
as a non-spiritual like lead like
uh,
acute person like
yeah,
it's just like, dude, like when I look at all of it and I go like, dude, like everybody does like all this bullshit to everybody. Like whether it's Muslims doing shit to Jews or Jews doing shit to Muslims or Christians doing shit to whoever doing Christian shit to Christians. Like it's always like this like persecution of like general hate and all this kind of stuff. And it's all the stuff that we like, as normal human beings, like we don't like no one likes to be like, oh, just because somebody's black, like I hate them. Like it's not
right.
cool, right? Like it's like
No,
racism isn't cool, and like just how it like looking at somebody else, it's like yeah, they have different spiritual views, and like they're of a different region, and like yeah, like, they may not can coincide with my views at all, but like guess what? I live on the other fucking side of the ocean.
yeah.
So
Well,
what
they're
the
coming to
fuck
you.
does my beliefs have anything to do with theirs?
Well,
If I came across the Avatar people in another world, I
mhm,
wouldn't come down and be like, "Hey, you guys need to not believe in your tree of fucking life like a bunch of fucking hoodlums." I
yeah,
wouldn't go there and tell them that. You know what I mean? I would have respect, and I would go like, "Yeah, that's what you believe.
yeah.
Cool. I'm glad you believe that." But guess what? It's a bunch of buffoonery. But I'm not going to tell you that. Just like how I would do with Jews or how I do with Muslims or anybody else. I would go like, hey, you believe in some shit. That's cool. But I believe in chemtrails and people think it's crazy. So like I can imagine people like believing like Allah is wild or God is wild. Like all those kinds of things. Like hey, I believe in the moon. Whatever you want to believe. I don't believe. Whatever you want to believe. I don't give a fuck, dude. But like,
Well,
you're not affecting my life. Like,
you
I don't.
will,
I don't
you,
care if you're persecuting Jesus. Really, honestly, because like, I'm not a Christian. So like, if you want to persecute Jesus and you want to like talk shit on him, dude, go for it. If you want to talk shit on Buddha, go for it. You want to talk shit on Allah, go for it, dude. You're not affecting my life. Like, I could give a fuck. I guarantee we can agree on a bunch of shit. I guarantee we both like alcohol. I guarantee we
yeah,
both like tobacco. And we're
yeah.
all the same fucking people, dude. We're all human, dude. Like, we all just like feeling good and believe in our little believies that make us feel safe and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, dude, like, we don't need to be killing each other over it. And that's like where I'm coming from and all of it. And
Well,
like, where all
nothing.
these people think that there's some kind of prophecy from some like, ephemeral god that is
Yeah,
going
but
to like place some kind of like legacy and prophecy upon us. Like it's far fetched to me, man. So I just go like, hey,
well,
we're all just people. Let's all get along. What are we
I mean
doing?
that's a very utopian view, and I wish that was the case, and I wish we all could get along, and I wish we could just mind our own business and everybody could just mind their own business. But the one thing you have to remember is, like I said, the Jews might be, kind of like we talked about, ethno state, whatever. But, you know, at least the Jews and Christians aren't, it isn't written in our holy books to go out and conquer the world. And because that is part of Islam, one, Europe is about to fall, whether you like it or not, whether you believe in all this God stuff or religion, it doesn't matter because it's real to them. And it will soon come to a town near you. And that's the truth of it, that you, regardless of whether you believe in what you don't believe, that's going to be a reality that you'll have to deal with.
Well, that might be the case, man. But like, I have problems conquering my household, let alone a society. So like,
Mhm.
you know, It's a fickle bitch, man. Like it's tough to do anything in this world, you know. So like,
Well,
if somebody wants to go and run the world and try to do whatever the fuck they want to do, spiritually or non, good luck, dude. Because I can't even conquer my own family and get what I want out of my own family.
right. Well,
And it's not. It's only out of selfish greed. It's not because they need to conform into any kind of like, acquiesce into anything that I want. But
mhm.
it's just that, it's just like nobody can get everything that they want. And whether you believe in a different deity or not, like, nobody's going to get what they want. Nobody's prophecy is going to get fulfilled into any utopia. So if you believe that socialism and communism that's trying to bring utopianism to the layman, and that there's some kind of promise to utopianism afterwards, out of afterlife, that's just a different form of socialism and communism in my eyes. I mean, that's just like, I don't know what we're doing here, man. So that's my thoughts on it.
Well, like I said, me and you have talked about it before. I mean, these are a lot of just like large scale macro,
Right. So
things that we talk about.
You can see the difference, right? Like communists and socialists are trying to bring utopium to reality. And then what everybody else is chasing in Christianity and otherwise is a utopia and afterlife. And I think both are far-fetched. I don't think there's any kind of utopia.
Well, I don't know. I couldn't speak on the afterlife because I have no experience with the afterlife.
Yeah, none of us do, because none of us have been there. Yeah, I totally agree.
Right.
But I think to believe that there's...
we've never been to an afterlife, though.
Well,
how
that's
do
true.
you both know we've never been? How do you know what lifetime we're in?
Well, that's
totally agreeable.
Are you talking about gods who wipe out humankind like after 6,000 to 8,000 years? Like, okay, well, let's get on the subject of reincarnation then. Like, what do you believe about that?
Okay, well, even if you're going to say that there's a reincarnation, that we've been to utopia, you can't live into you can't ascend into a utopia to then be descended away from it. That's not a utopia in its essence. Like, you can't be shot into utopia and the best life you've ever had, and that it's going to be the best life forever, because you ultimately have an expiration date on it. So then you're going to be sucked away from that utopia,
you're talking about
into reality.
You're talking about for reincarnation.
That's what, but I'm just saying, like, you can't. It's not utopia because it's not forever. It's not good for everything forever. That's what utopia is.
But in that scenario, maybe
on the
maybe not everybody that say if you believe in reincarnation, though, like maybe when you die, most of the time you don't go to heaven. Like, who was the who was that? Was that Enoch? Which was like some of the scrolls found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but he talked about
he was banned from the basic, like, like the modern day text.
But in those texts he talks about the 7 heavens.
He was in the African biblical texts, Enoch. And he was not allowed into the current day.
I also just want you to know, when I went and got inside and got something to eat and took a break, it was 11:11.
Whoa!
I'm like kind of into numerology too, so like I just like numbers and stuff.
I do. Mindy, I enjoy those. Like when I see 11:11 or like 222 or 333. I always look. I've heard different theories on it. People will say, "Oh, that's angel numbers," or "That's like God trying to get your attention." Whatever. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but I always take a moment to reflect on like what is going on around me at that exact moment, and then like the things I've been thinking about and the things that are going on in my life at the time, to try to figure out like if there is something I should be paying attention to. But I also pay attention to that.
Yeah, and maybe just also use it as a moment to like send good energy back out into the universe,
Yeah.
Like 11:11, touch something blue and make.
Wait a second. I thought I was winning an argument here, and you guys just fucking digressed onto some fucking weird zodiac bullshit.
Well, you invited me to be a celebrity, whatever, when you had to pee. So that means sometimes I guess I get to be a celebrity guest on your podcast.
Yeah, and also Aaron, great talk, sir. Neither of us are trying to win. We're both just giving our opinions and like what we believe, and then let other people kind of take their own opinions from that. I'm not trying to beat you. I'm not like trying to have a debate with you. I'm just giving you my opinion.
Right.
Well, this podcast would be a lot different if you two
Which
were
is
on it,
what you always
because you two are
you
faith based
too.
and I'm pragmatic. So
Yeah.
there you go.
But real quickly to what Mindy was saying about reincarnation, because I've thought about this several times. But so if you read, what is it? So Dante's Inferno talks about like the the seven realms of hell,
Yes.
and then in the Book of Enoch, which is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, he talks about the seven heavens. So like I've always thought about like what if like so if reincarnation was a thing, like maybe you don't actually like when you die, like maybe you get to a place in the heavens that isn't actually heaven itself. Maybe there's different layers to that too. Like, you work your way up.
I would question, okay, just from the layman, I would question the disparity between 7 layers of heaven
Yeah.
between the 5 senses of our, our 5 apertures to interpret our reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that that's a disparity. So I think that that's like that's a weird kind of setup to go like, hey, there's 7 layers of heaven. I would also argue, like we were just saying, that like if reincarnation is real, and you are
you didn't say layers though. You said 7 heavens.
Yeah, 7 heavens.
Not
So it's
layers.
like 7.
whatever.
There's a difference.
I know. But what I'm saying is what I'm comparing it to is that you're saying if there's reincarnation, okay, that you then ascend to a utopian state.
Well,
that is heaven, right?
But there's
okay. Let's backpedal. What is heaven?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, like, if there are 7 heavens and there's, a place where God dwells and where angels dwell and where, the saints dwell. So there might be like different, parts of heaven. So like maybe a reincarnated spirit, maybe they go to the bottom layer where you're kind of just in like kind of happiness and bliss and whatever, but then you get reincarnated until you complete a mission that God has for you. I mean, I don't know. These are just me speculating. I don't know any of this, but
okay,
I mean,
well, let's just play into the hypothetical then. Okay, so the hypothetical is that there's different trials and tribulations that you have to get to ascend to higher levels of heaven.
Could be. It's a possibility.
Sounds like a fun game. If it was on Xbox, I'd buy it. But so let's can you grab me a beer, please? It might be the last one. But anyway, so let's just pretend that there's these trials and tribulations that go throughout the different stages of heaven to get to an ultimate utopic state of heaven where you meet God or something, or you meet Jesus, say. It's like the ultimate expression of utopia. So you have an eternity to get through these trials and tribulations. Is that like the ultimate sentiment? I'm just playing the hypothetical out. So like,
I don't really know,
I don't know, but in either case, it's just like, if you were then backpedal back to belief of reincarnation, it's like you aren't able to forego these 7 trials into further utopic states because you have to reincarnate and learn new trials and tribulations to be able to get to the next utopic state. So you have to live another lifetime. That's kind of a beautiful sentiment, honestly. I mean, like, if you want to think about a spiritual ideal, a spiritual ideal would be like, you have to go through a lifetime to learn a lesson. And then your next lifetime is to learn another lesson. And then your next lifetime, and then through 7 lifetimes, you should have learned all of your lessons. And if you don't, your soul has to go through another lifetime, and it has to keep going through lifetimes until it learns that lesson. And maybe that's like the lifetimes and the soul journeys that we're all on, and that could be different than Christianity. And like, it's still a beautiful sentiment. It's still a beautiful story.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's where I like, I haven't had that lightning rod moment of like,
here's
Jesus coming down and striking me. I can think of other beautiful utopic experiences for a soul's life journey to travel through multiple lives. It's just like,
Well,
I think it's even more beautiful than what the whole story of Jesus is. So, like, why,
well,
if I'm coming up with a better story in my dumb mind, as Darren Gray talk, like coming up with something like, why didn't Jesus think of this? Why didn't God think of this?
well,
Like,
let me bring several points to what you just said. One, just because in your mind it's pretty arrogant to think that whatever you just came up with is a better, more just, more blissful, more
I have a good argument for you, but I'll
just
let you continue.
system than a God who has been around forever and is almighty and is the size of a quadrillion universes could
Agreed.
come up with. Okay, so that's one. And then two, I just want to always remind people, because I like to be a free thinker sometimes and just think outside of the box, and not everything that I say that is a theory of mine is like biblical or anything like that. But also, to the biblical scholars out there, one thing I always like to think about is, like, God gave us the Bible and gave us a whole lot of information in that. But also, you have to remember is, just because it doesn't specifically say in the Bible doesn't mean God isn't capable of it. So, like, when I've heard a lot of Christians talk about, like, well, reincarnation isn't talked about in the Bible, so it's not possible. But, like, who are you to say, like, say somebody who died and went before God, and who are you to say Jesus or somebody didn't say, you know what, I have the ability, I'm the creator, I'm almighty, I will send you back to give you another chance because I believe in you. So, like, there's things like that where I think about sometimes, where it may not always necessarily say something in that Bible, but God is so great and so powerful and everlasting and eternal that our puny little ant brains compared to his can never fully understand who he is and what his mercy is and what his justice is.
Okay,
So,
okay. But so, like, just from point blank of your explanation there, I would
okay.
say that you have a godlike figure who says that I don't want you to fully understand me, but I want you to fully follow me.
Mhm.
And that's a disparity right there that I can't get over. And then on top of that, for the arrogance of
Mhm.
Christians and Christianity to say that
Yeah,
we are right and that there's all these other spiritual beliefs that are wrong, it's
yeah,
another arrogance that I cannot cross that hurdle over. And
yeah.
whether you guys are right or not, I hope you are. For your sake, I hope you are.
I know we are.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I know. I've experienced the hubris multiple times.
Well, it's not hubris.
And
It's
it
just,
is, dude. You guys all believe that you're right, and
I know, I know
that's
it.
it. There's
I
nothing
know it.
else, dude.
I know it.
I know you do, and I wish that I had that belief. I
But
do
it's not
not,
because,
because
like,
I'm super skeptical. That's my whole life.
I know, I get it. But, like, also, like, I tried to reach out to whoever would listen to me. Like, when I was in despair and my life was falling apart and I had overdosed 2 times and basically died. Like, I reached out to whoever would help me, and it was Jesus who helped me. So I will forever be grateful to him and indebted to him. And I know, and I've gotten to know him, and, like, I just know that there's that is the truth. I know I can't convince other people because it's
Dude,
like kind
it
of like your
sounds
own
like an
baby.
amazing experience. Like, I fucking wish I had that, dude.
Yeah.
It's great. Like, I just wish I had that, but, like, I don't.
See, like, I have the same
So
thing, but I would say God instead of Jesus. I would
yeah.
replace that word.
Yeah, so Mindy would just replace it with God. So, like, everybody has a different term, and, like, I
Mm.
I have my own understandings with my own, like, it's kind of like, I guess, my own self-conscience, I would
Mhm.
call it, you
Yeah.
know? It was just like, hey, I have an understanding, We both
Yeah.
get it, my conscience and we get it. We're like, yeah, this is
And
what this
also,
is, but, like, I don't have that, the extra version of it, where that you have, and Mindy
yeah,
you may
and
have,
like I said, and
where
it's
it's
such
just,
a hard thing. It's such a hard
yeah,
thing
I
because,
don't have
like,
that.
I guess there's some people that have, like, grown up in the church that naturally kind of have that relationship with God and with Jesus, but, like, I never had that. So, like, the way I came to Jesus was almost like a way that I wish people didn't have to come to him, because I basically almost died. My whole life was falling apart. I kind of wanted to die to some extent. I just didn't want to die because I was so fearful of how I was living. I didn't want to end up in hell. was part of it. Well, not even so much hell. I just felt like, man, I'm living my life so badly that I just have a feeling deep, a guttural feeling that if I die like this, like I'm not going to enjoy what comes
Well,
after
dude,
this.
like what you just said right there, like makes me not knock what Christianity is, where it's like you have this fear level of going like, hey man, I've been doing nothing but wrong my whole experiential reality of
Yeah,
life as a human
yeah,
being in my body, where it's like I've been doing nothing but bad. So like I'm probably in my external life going to end
yeah,
up in more bad.
yeah.
So
It's
like
not going
I
to be
need to
good.
like give myself a chance to grace myself into good,
Yeah,
and then hopefully like good will perpetuate in my afterlife. And I totally understand that like
hmm
sentiment, like that's something I can get behind.
hmm
But like but then to then convey it upon all these external religious beliefs of stories and stuff of times past, which really isn't even that old in like the grand scheme of things, that's where I have my disconnect. So
yeah. I just think there's so much we don't know. As whether it comes to history, whether it comes to God, the afterlife. There's just so many unknowns. So it's hard to
well, for
sometimes.
you it sounds like it's pretty known though.
Well, the only thing that's
You would have
known,
to proclaim that it's known, right?
well, not everything. The only thing that is known to
You'd
me
have
is
to
that
know
like
that Jesus is the Savior.
Jesus saved. Yeah, I believe he's the
Can't
savior.
say that you don't know, but then you know that Jesus is your Savior. You know,
Well, at the very least,
can't can't be a double standard.
at the very least, he saved me. So, like, I don't know what that does. That mean, like, what else could that possibly mean? That he saved me, but yet he isn't the Son of God, and the Bible isn't true, and that, I don't know what you extrapolate from that, but I just know that when I was desperate, I reached out to all kinds of different things, whether it be therapy or it be, I checked into Islam and I checked into, and then sometimes when I started thinking about Jesus, I'm like, it was Jesus the Son of God,
When
or
did
the
you
Jews
check
right?
into Islam?
First, right after I got out of therapy, I started looking
Were
into
you in
that.
jail?
No, it was like shortly after that. It was like probably within the first like year. Like I looked
You
into
like saw
Islam.
somebody in rehab and they were like not eating meat, and you're like, that sounds interesting.
I just
What's
always
that
thought it
all
was interesting.
about?
There's a lot of stuff about Islam and about Judaism I found interesting. So I just like looked into it and read upon it, but what I found was that the people that I looked up to the most, that I felt like, wow, these are like some really good men and really good women, and like they truly mean what they say, and they're actually like
Like
good.
who?
Like Pastor Paul Begley, he's a guy on YouTube. People like my Uncle Ron, who was like and my Aunt Carol, who were like trying to get me into religion forever, and I just wasn't having it. And those are the ones that know the people that own your work. They go
So
to
they
church with
were
them.
into what? Like they were into like a specific denomination that you.
Wait, they know the people that own Aaron's work?
Yeah, they're friends with them. They
Who's
go to the
Aaron's
same
work?
church.
Who's Aaron's work?
You're
The
what
minor?
is it? Minor and Sons. My Aunt Carol and my Uncle Ron. I talked to you about this already.
Aaron's works.
Your work. Your place of employment, babe.
What do they do?
My
His
aunt and uncle are
family
my aunt and my
knows.
uncle knows the people that own Minard and Sons. Their parents go to church with my Aunt Carol and my Uncle Ron.
Yeah, at the top of the hill from where we live.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you were asking me who I know that like kind of swayed me into Christianity, and I'm telling you, like people that I've met that were just like some of the just nicest and kindest and most charitable people I'd ever met.
Yeah, like again, I don't knock Christian people, but like not on that in that sense, but like what I knock them on is just like the whole belief structure of like where they found themselves in that. Whether they found themselves, in complete fucking fictional like stuff, but still act well in their reality and their behavioral, like aspects of them. Like I'm cool with all that, but like.
Mhm.
But the whole idea behind it, where you go, you know, that you believe in something so much that it's real, and it's just like there's no other propensity or capacity for anything to be more real, is what
Mhm.
is what um drives me for a loop, dude.
Yeah,
It's like
well,
I can't believe that you believe something so much that there's no other evidence that come to light that that could dismantle.
He's not
that
saying there
reality.
isn't, though.
Yeah.
He's
I
not
just
saying
don't
that.
like I said, I don't know everything, but like all I can give you is like my experience.
Right,
And so like
right. But I still haven't had that experiential reality where you guys
Yeah.
have. So that's like where the disconnect is.
Yeah,
So
and maybe
the
you will.
disconnect is
I don't
that
know.
I've reached out multiple times. I called Jesus. I was like, "Hey, what's going on, man? Text me back." And he never
Did you
texts
tell
back,
him I
dude.
sent you? Did you tell him I sent you?
Yeah, I told him you sent me. And he, you know what he said? He said, "Yeah, fuck you, did." He's like,
No,
"GFY, go fuck
don't
yourself." That's what he said.
don't lie to me.
Dude, he was not receptive.
Me and
So,
him were tight. I told him, I said, Aaron's coming. You just be ready for it. And he said, I
dude,
was ready.
even the last two events that I worked outside of my job when I was unemployed, and I worked with Lee, both of those jobs were at church functions, and I sat through the church, the you know, the what do you call it? Sermon.
I don't know, it depends on where you're at. Like if it's Catholic, it's a mass.
Sermon's
Yeah.
what it's called. The sermon. And even one was politically charged in my direction for Trump over Kamala. And even all that, I was just like, there's something that's off. There's something that's off here, and it seems a little bit fabricated. And I was turned off. So that's what my experience was.
I think this is just my projection into the future, is whether it be a come to Jesus and whether you come to actual know Jesus or not. I think that your spiritual walls will be broken down further layer by layer through your child or children.
Yeah.
That's how
Could
I think.
I mean, that's definitely a
That'd be cool if
possibility.
it did. But that's the thing. It's like I hate on it all, but like I'm open to it. So you can't hate on me for that. Like I'm always telling you guys, like it's great. I wish I could experience that. It'd be awesome. Cool.
And it's so funny because what's so funny is like sometimes, and this is something that I think Christians, especially myself, like we have to really check ourselves sometimes because and really think about the big picture is like, coming to Jesus for me was an extremely hard experience. And like, like I said, I went through like a whole lot of trauma and things to like get to that point. And I know maybe not everybody has to go through that, but I think a lot of people, that's like how they come to Jesus. And so a lot of times, like I find myself listening to people, whether it be like politicians or other like podcasters and things like that. And I just
people of influence. Yeah.
And I just find myself listening to them and I'm just like, man, this guy is like, or this ladies, I'm just like, they are so far off. Like they have no relationship with God. I can just tell. And like, I find not a hatred boiling in me, but just like an anger. Like someone
it's interesting because we are starting a podcast together and I'm on the boiling point edge for you.
No, you're not. No, you're not, because I just consider you like you're my friend. You're just like, a normal person. And I know that it's not an easy journey for anybody to come to the same conclusions I have. But
it's interesting because I think it's what makes our, talks interesting is that we're on opposing sides, but we're still friends.
Well, dude, and there's a lot of people that I love that aren't Christians. Like even like I'm pretty sure like my brothers, like I've talked to them about stuff several times, and I think that they're
Zach
on the
or
same.
Josh.
I think both of them really, like they're both on the same. They're both on the same level on me as far as like political wise. We're on the same page, but when I go deeper than that, a lot of times like they're just like, I don't want to hear it, and that's really how like most of the men.
Well, dude, that's surprising for Zach because he's like a military man, so I would imagine that would coincide with his like.
No, like they don't really like talk about it. My grandpap was always like that, like that nobody ever liked talking.
Your grandfather was not religious.
Not really. Like I think he believed in God, but like he was like old school where he's like, you don't talk about politics and you don't talk about religion. And
I hate that fucking sentiment. That's dumb.
And I'm going back to the coal mine on Monday. You know what I mean? Like he was dumb. Just, I don't know if I'll say it's behavior. That's just the way it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't disrespect him for it, but I'm just saying like it's dumb.
But you know what? In certain ways, I kind of respect it because it's like I think you should be able to have to have the intelligence and the courage to be able to speak about those things in front of people. But at the same time, there is kind of a time and place where I'm like, I just want to have a good time tonight. I don't want to bring this stuff up
Yeah,
because
that's different. That's different. Like stoicism's different from expression.
right.
Stoicism's just like, yeah, like you're able to not bring it up in every aspect of your life and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and that's great. But like to not be able to express yourself on it is a different
Hmm.
conversation,
Yeah.
And I would say that I don't knock your grandfather for having that mindset on it because it was a different time,
Yeah. That's really
but
the way it was back
like
then. Yeah.
now in today's lifetime, I would say if you don't have an opinion on it, then you are, um,
Well,
like
you're
you're not
certainly not
thinking
thinking.
critically. You're not thinking
Yeah. Yeah.
critically
Yeah.
in your life. Like you need to be thinking critically.
But also, like, maybe, who knows, like maybe my grandpap actually had deep thoughts on it, but he never really talked about me or us about it. You know what I mean? So I think, and that's another thing I have issues with sometimes, even for myself. It's like, and I talked about this with you before, like when we talked about my son's baptism, where it's like I, sometimes I'm caught in between, like, am I talking enough about it? Like, should I do more for God and like spreading the
Talking
word?
against it, you mean?
Not against it. Should I do more to like spread the word for God, or am
Well,
I?
dude, okay, if we're going to talk about what your belief system is, like your belief system is that you don't believe in a baptism, right?
Well, I'm not even talking about the baptism. I'm just talking about I brought that subject up to the priests when I was there, but like
We get a
sometimes
deacon, you mean?
the
Yeah.
deacon, correct. But I get caught in between, like sometimes I feel like I want to do more, and then sometimes I'm like, well, I'm actually not. I don't spend enough time truly researching, and maybe if I talk too much about it, I'm not going to do justice to it. So like I
Yeah,
get
well,
caught.
that's where I see stoicism as a fallacy. Like I see stoicism as going like, "Hey, we're all just believing something because we all believe something," and I think that's where stoicism's fault is. Like we need to re-examine and deeply examine, like what we're doing in our communities, and
Mm,
and just doing things because it's the way we've always done them is
yeah.
a stoicism,
Well, yeah, and another thing.
on the resentment of community or in the zeitgeist of community. So like I don't think stoicism's like the best thing to go about
Well, you know
how
what?
you should do things. I think you should think deeply into things and go like, hey, like if we're doing this in a historical context and like a legacy context, whatever it is, like we need to like
Yeah.
re-examine like why we're doing this at any given time. And I think that's like what's lost upon us is that
Yeah.
there's values that were within that stoicism and within that legacy of tradition that we're lost and that we just keep doing things the way that we're doing them, just how we do it, like the bunny shitting out bunnies or the shitting out eggs for Easter and all that kind of stuff, and it has to do with like the revival of Jesus and like it's just all wild, dude. We can't just be doing this stuff just to keep doing it. We need to like re-examine and go like, okay, why are we like continuing this tradition?
Mhm.
And I think like a lot of times that people just do things just because it's the way things always been done. And if I look at any of that kind of mindset into reality and application into like a professional like aspect or
Yeah.
even a family aspect, it causes waves. And I don't think that's good.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I always remind myself that God talks about in the Bible too is like he always has a different season for us for our journey. So like that's something I always keep in mind too. So it's like, maybe like right now, maybe the season is to do this podcast with you and talk about maybe my religion some and other, you know, political stuff and maybe that's this season, but like he might also put me in a season where he kind of wants me to just shut up, focus on myself, just do some, introspection and just focus on my family. Or maybe he'll put me in a season where he's like, maybe you guys should start doing some music again. Like, so I think there's always different seasons in your life, and they're not always the same, and your goal in those seasons aren't always the same. Like my goal, like I'm in the season now of fatherhood, just like you. So like this is a whole new season. Like I'm learning. I don't even know everything that goes along with it, but I'm learning. So, and there may be a season that maybe God wants me to be practice stoicism more and just kind of keep my mouth shut, keep my head down, and just work, whatever. Like I go, there's always different seasons. So whatever you're going through and the things that you're focused on, maybe that's if you're trusting in God and you're doing what you're supposed to do, maybe that's exactly where you're supposed to be. So that's something I think about a lot too. So.
Well, I agree with that sentiment. What I would say to wrap up this conversation
Yeah.
is that if there is a season that is to be imparted on us in our conversation here as the podcast that we're venturing on, that I would hope that if there is a Christian God in the way
Mhm.
that you believe,
Yeah.
and that you wholeheartedly believe, that I believe that it's imparted on me, and that that season is brought upon me to experience this journey to bring me to enlightenment.
Me too. I hope so. But
Though I am not entirely convinced,
Oh, but what did I say? But what did I say that I foreshadowed that I thought one of the
Yeah.
signs was going to be you doing this podcast?
Right. So there you go. So maybe this
Mindy's,
podcast is for the
Maybe.
enlightenment of Aaron Great Talk, but I have my
and others,
skepticism.
hopefully, and others, and hopefully for myself too, and to better, kind of define what I believe, and kind of sharpen my beliefs would be good too. So.
Yeah, and I would hope through the argumentation that we have that you can articulate yourself well enough that you'll convince me.
Mindy's official name going forward in the podcast in the future is the Oracle.
The Oracle? Wait, I need to
Yeah.
hold on. I have to put the wait. I'm right, and that's funny because look, the whale right here, the Oracle.
The Orca,
the Oracle is kind of like a whale.
Yeah, like an orca. Yeah.
Orca?
No, but the Oracle. Well, that's like a software program too, isn't it? Oracle.
Yeah, I just think of the Oracle as the lady. Well, back in ancient Greece, like the ladies who used to get like they used to get like messed up on all those gases and stuff, and the temple.
The Greek
and they
myths,
yeah. Well, and they would tell the future supposedly.
Yeah,
And same thing
it'd be
with the Oracle.
soothsayers. Yeah,
from the Matrix. Remember the black lady from the Matrix, the
Yeah.
Oracle?
Yeah, I know it all ties together. Isn't that crazy? And it's outside of the Christian spectrum. So isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It should be because you know what? You're on a wild journey, baby.
Yeah.
There we go. We're on a wild journey. Okay, I'm going to end the recorded call this time.
Hey, Aaron, make sure you send it to me because I didn't record it. So send it to me so I can just post it. And
I just said it. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. This is Nick and Aaron of the Two Bad Dads podcast. Thanks for listening. Have a good night. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
There you go. See it? Done.
That's good.